Yo, buy this little freak, dude. Put this little freak in your bag, dude. Yeah, you should buy a little freak for your little freak, right? Buy this little blind box, dude. That way you might get a super freak. Oh my god! Make sure you don't miss out on buying the little freaks. That's what it feels like to be on social media nowadays, because the advertising for Labubu dolls is ridiculous. And I do a lot of scrolling to find things I can make videos on, and no matter how many genuine weirdos and conspiracy theorists I interact with, for some reason, Instagram still thinks I want to hear about Labubus and Dubai chocolate every second scroll. So I'm gonna take that as a sign from the universe that these microtrends are worth talking about. And oh boy, was I right, because the more I looked into it, the more depressed I got. The concept is just kind of sad as a whole. It's basically gambling for future landfill stuffing. And while that's already bad enough, the unbelievable lengths that social media goes to promote these things is actually infuriating.
How much did you spend on Labubus last month?
Probably like 700.
Like, there was an actual licensed therapist on here talking about the surprising mental health benefits of Labubus, but we'll get into that a bit later, because that's ridiculous. And that's why I believe that these posts are genuinely propaganda, hence the title. Anyways though, quick disclaimer, no shade to anyone who actually buys these in moderation. Like, I have a few friends who have a few, and it's really just because they find them cute. And like, for real, I'm not judging, I got a few anime figures on my shelf next to... two cans of duster and a wine glass shaped vase. That's a great look. I swear I was just cleaning my PC. But anyways, unless you're Labubu's George who buys 10,000 Labubus a day and is a statistical outlier that shouldn't be counted, I don't really care if you buy into these a little bit. What I want to discuss today and what I really do take issue with is how these dolls got popular, the gambling addictions these foster, the bizarre hype and consumer identities that these create, and the ridiculous marketing propaganda that keeps getting pushed on me. Oh, and the biggest problem, the environmental impact on the human labor that has to go into these things that really serve no purpose. But on that happy note, let's get into it. So Labubu dolls are these little dolls based on Costing Lung's illustrations, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I do gotta be fair, I actually really like his art. Like, I was expecting not to, I expected it to be some like mass-produced bullshit like the dolls themselves, but nah, it's actually really charming. But maybe I'm just easily impressed because all I can draw are furries and anime girls. But eventually Lung partnered with a collectible company called Pop Mart, and they started making dolls based on his original Labubu character. And they were pretty popular in China, but for some reason once they got to the US, they absolutely exploded in popularity, like to the point that the CEO made $1.6 billion in a single day after they got released in the US. And I think that's mainly due to the marketing. Because like I said, for me at least, the marketing's been invading every damn crevice of the internet. Like, I cannot escape these damn dolls. At least for me. Maybe I'm actually the only one who sees it. Like, remember that one episode with Robin and Slade? Maybe that's what's happening here, but it can't just be me. It can't just be me. Like, someone has to be getting paid. Because nothing I interact with on Instagram, and those of you who follow me could probably verify, suggests that I would be interested in Dubai chocolate Labubus. And then not only that, but I keep getting, like, videos of these, like, Labubu raves. What kind of NPC activities is that? Who is going to a Labubu rave? Oh, dude, it's just so frustrating. And if you're not super chronically online like I am, then you're probably wondering why Dubai chocolate makes me so mad. But basically, it's one of those things that, like, is purely manufactured hype that got popularized through annoying marketing.
Giant Dubai chocolate?
What? Dude, could you imagine this being your job? Like, look, I can't talk. I'm a commentary YouTuber, but like, at the very least, I greatly enjoy this. There's no way you don't feel some sort of dread after filming every one of these videos. But my point is basically, when it comes to Dubai chocolate, a bunch of influencers just hopped online and said, trying the new viral Dubai chocolate, and then they called that virality into existence, because it wasn't viral before. And in fact, they were probably paid to start this feedback loop. Okay, I still did a bad job of explaining why it makes me mad, and honestly, I think it really just boils down to influencer culture is cringe as hell, and I hate seeing people buy into it. That's more of a pet peeve of mine, though. And I feel like a similar thing is happening with Labubus, as there are numerous Labubu influencers out there who document their collections, post unboxing videos, talk about the ones they want, show off their little, like, Labubu outfits, and they really romanticize it and try to get people to buy into it by, like, really emphasizing the exclusive fact. Because they actually are kind of hard to get due to their popularity. The most popular way to get them is by these little blind boxes, which retail at about $28 a piece, which is already ridiculous. But it's even more ridiculous because you don't even know what you're gonna get. But due to artificial scarcity, the price actually might be a little higher. I'm not even joking. I watched a TikTok shop live yesterday, which is actually a really common way to get Labubus. People just camp out there and start bidding on Labubu auctions on TikTok. That's a horrible sentence, man. I hate TikTok culture. Anyways, though, I saw one blind box go for $211. Well, the picture they used looks like a single box, but it was probably a pack of 6 because that's like a whole set. But still, that's like 50 or 60 bucks overpay. But you don't understand. I fucking need the plastic, dude. Like, the most I've ever bought on TikTok were markers. I'm not putting $200 into that app and then risking getting a fake Labubu, because that's also a huge problem. But again, like I said, the main thing making these popular are influencers doing this sort of thing. But it's actually even more so these celebrities who post about Labubu. So I think the person who really blew it up was Lisa from Blackpink, because one day she posted about her Labubu collection, and that just exploded the market. But I really just gotta say, how are some people this gullible, dude? Like, I'm sorry, there's not a chance in hell that Lisa wasn't paid to do this. You aren't taking part in some celebrity's esoteric personal hobby. You are buying into a manufactured marketing craze. Chill the fuck out. You don't need to camp out for hours outside of Labubu just because Lisa bought it. Maybe the first post was unprompted, but the next one surely weren't. Like, yeah, Vanity Fair, I'm sure Lisa's secret pop mart hobby definitely is meant to be a secret, and it definitely isn't just manufactured marketing craze. And there's really nothing wrong with like taking sponsorships or like, you know, getting paid for marketing. It's just like the issue I take with this is that I find it so unbearably cringy when people just go balls to the wall with these trends after they see a celebrity do it or see it on TikTok. Like, dude, if you see a K-pop star, wait, she's K-pop, right? Yes. And then you just go dump your paycheck into these fucking blind boxes. I'm sorry, you're the type of person to run into a painted tunnel on a wall. And once again, nothing wrong with buying one or two of these things or just doing it in moderation. Overall, the thing that bothers me so deeply is just the bizarre, unnatural hype and like mass psychosis it's causing. Like, seriously, why are we so rabid about collecting sweatshop dolls? Like, are we serious? Does your designer bag really need a plastic little freak to match with it? And do you really need a Labubu for your Labubu? Yeah, that's a thing. I don't know. Who is buying these? I know it sounds like I'm making mountains out of molehills, and I kinda am. I'm a professional molehill mountain maker. But trends like these and just the ridiculous heights they go to just really bug me. It's just a big personal pet peeve of mine. Because like, dude, these plastic dolls made with exploited labor in the global south have people resorting to Taylor Swift concert ticket methods. I was reading the subreddit for tips on how to get Labubus, and the first tip was to use your phone instead of computer so your thumb doesn't have as far to move. Like, why are we doing frame perfect overconsumption speedruns, man? Relax. Like, you don't need to be part of the in-group this badly. This in-group won't exist in about 2 months. Sorry, complete side note, but I decided to look into some Labubu beginner's guides. Yeah, that's a thing. And this channel actually gave out a great initial guide, but they also gave out this banger of a line, and I just had to share with somebody, because I died when I heard this.
And we're so obsessed with all things Hawaii that we literally moved across the world to Japan to study Japanese just so we can learn everything there is to know about all of our favorite characters.
You went to Japan and learned a whole new language just to learn more about brands? Like, dude, consumption is a religion at this point. This is the late-stage capitalist version of learning Arabic and going to Mecca, or learning Latin and going to the Vatican. Like, dude, you're gonna get nothing out of studying Hello Kitty lore in the original language. Like, relax, man. And I'm being a bit of a hater, I'm taking them a bit out of context. Like, that's what their channel's based on. I'm sure they had other reasons to move to Japan. I just thought that line was hilarious. That'd be like me moving next door to Chad so I could study commentary better. But yeah, sorry, just had to share that line, because that absolutely killed me. But speaking of things that kill me, let's discuss the gambling aspect of Labubus, and how they're also generating the hype. But yeah, you spend $30 for a chance to get something that's rarer than what you paid for, which is pretty hard to do, because apparently the secret ones are like a 1 in 72 up to 1 in 144 chance. And the collector's aspect is concerning too. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to pop mart collectors, and some of these people have thousands of dollars worth of Labubus just on a shelf. I don't know, I've always been a little weirded out by collector behavior. It depends on the object though. Like, if you're collecting like hobby things, I feel like that's a little different because like they have a use beyond that, but Labubus are just that. They're just these dolls, that's it. And many of them are doing so with the expectation that this will later turn a profit when they get more popular. Sort of like Pokemon card collectors do. Like, check this post out. How do I make a successful pop mart reselling business? Which basically translates to, how do I scalp Labubus? Dude, get a job. Just get a job. I can't believe this is like the aspirations some people have in life. But anyways, back to Labubus. So like I was saying, many people treat Labubus like an investment, whether they'll consciously admit it or not. And other people just get obsessed with collecting like the whole set or something. I don't know why they do that actually. But to me, it's starting to really remind me of the Beanie Baby craze. So if you're like me and weren't alive at the time, essentially Beanie Babies were these little stuffed animals that absolutely took off in the 90s. And it was mainly due to hype and artificial scarcity. So they would retire a lot of the old Beanie Baby collections so people would just buy them up like crazy. But eventually, people started collecting Beanie Babies in the hopes that the price would keep rising because people kept going absolutely crazy over them. And some people did just like collecting them, but like, there was always the expectation that this would bring money later, because then you get to sell to other obsessive collectors and people investing who were late to the party. And in case you're wondering why the hell they expected these things to rise, there's a few reasons. The main one is that the things that 90s adults collected as kids started to sell for really high prices, so people started to see collecting as like a sort of money-making opportunity. And so they were like, wait, if I start collecting new things now, I might get to cash in on that in a decade or two. Sort of like an investment, but really, really stupid and way more volatile, because there's like nothing backing the value of these. And also this behavior really got like stoked on by early internet hype and just general like mass psychosis, I don't know, which really just created its own feedback loop. Like everyone sees people freaking out, so now they gotta join in and maybe cash in too. And there were even price guides out there that tried to predict how much Beanie Babies would be worth in like a decade or two, and they just put these arbitrarily crazy high numbers, and again, that just stoked the hype again. It's like, their numbers were based on nothing, but it still increased that hype. And people just started completely believing that these things were gonna rise and invested like crazy. And then a few years later, the bubble eventually burst, because of course it did. There's nothing backing these other than hype, and the only people to make money were people who sold out early. And like, the people with Beanie Babies left could still sell to collectors, but it wasn't as profitable. And actually, I decided to look for earlier examples of this sort of like mass psychosis bubble behavior, and this wasn't the first time this happened. One of the earliest examples of this sort of like mass psychosis bubble behavior was in the Netherlands, where rich people started buying tulip bulbs for just insane prices. And again, they created this crazy bubble, everyone bought a bunch of tulips, and then they lost all their value, and a bunch of people lost a bunch of money. It's the dumbest thing ever. And that was in the 1600s, so this wasn't even like a social media thing. Like, this has been happening with rich people. But the reason I bring these examples up is because I feel like they really remind me of what's happening with Labubus nowadays. Because the market for Labubus seems to be almost entirely adults. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a single kid with one of these, unless it's their parent buying them one for a TikTok video. So all I have to say, basically, my personal theory is that the people buying into Labubus now are the people who either missed the Beanie Baby craze in the 90s, couldn't afford to be in it because they were like a kid or something, or they just weren't born, and now they're like, oh shit, the next Beanie Baby craze is coming, I gotta cash in on this before I miss out. It's like a real mass FOMO sort of thing. But it'll probably end just as badly. Outside of those wannabe investors though, a lot of the Labubu buyers, and I'd even say most just because these groups kind of overlap, buy them because they're kind of a status symbol now just due to their like exclusivity. Well, I mean, they're ridiculously popular, so they're not actually that exclusive, but they feel like they are because they're really hard to get and you have to be dedicated to get one. Like, you gotta wait in line for hours or be on these TikTok lives outbidding rich people. But hey, once you get the Labubu, you get to make it part of your personality, and now you're part of an in-group to fill that void that's been robbed of you by capitalism. Or it's just a gambling addiction. Like, there's people who open CSGO crates but don't even really play CSGO. It's like they're just after the rush of opening like a new sort of gambling thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not at all making fun of people in this behavior or trying to like make light of like people lacking fulfillment. Because like, look, the world sucks. Everyone's got their sort of thing to fill the void. So people often turn to consumerism. But that doesn't make it any less ridiculous to watch, especially when this sort of coping consumerism takes the form of people buying dolls made by people in worse conditions. Like, the labor that goes into those damn dolls is going to be wasted because in about a month or two time, these are all going to be in landfills, I'm sorry to say it. But while I find it very unfortunate that people turn to this blind sort of consumerism to fill the void, not everyone sees that as a bad thing, oh man, including journalists and an actual licensed therapist. So here is the abomination of a post that I got on my feed that inspired me to make this entire video. Alright, I'm just gonna read this garbage out for y'all. The surprising mental health benefit of Labubus. Licensed therapist Lindsay Fleming isn't surprised to hear that Labubus have fostered connection, especially in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. It might seem small, but even something as innocuous as a bag charm can actually help people feel less alone. It also makes us feel a lot more in control of our life and thoughts, Fleming says. Describing the mindset as being, I don't have to think about the uncertainty of my job or the future. I can think about my Labubu. Oh man. Fleming agrees that Labubus and toys in general can be powerful mental health tools. There's a connection between when we're feeling like a recession's coming or we're feeling uncertainty that we see people gravitate towards these things, she says. It gives us a sense of, okay, I'm feeling really anxious, here's a pocket of joy. The same principles apply to grief. When you're grieving, there's something that can make you feel a pocket of joy. People are going to latch onto that. Fleming says, be it a song, a recipe, or yes, even a Labubu. And no shade to the actual therapist herself, because I really don't think she said what the writer thought she did. But before we get into that part, can you imagine having a therapist like this? So what seems to be the problem today? Well, the world absolutely sucks. The job market's cooked, my future's looking bleak, but I'm actually relatively privileged. That's nothing compared to what else is happening. We just bombed Iran, we built a concentration camp surrounded by alligators. We've been sending billions of dollars to Israel, we have for-profit prisons, and the entire biosphere is in critical danger because our overconsumption habits are literally destroying the earth, and everything is on a timer. So would you say that you're lonely and worried about the future? Well, it's a little reductive, but yeah, I'd say so. Y'all, that's lame as hell. Look at this dude worried about the future. Like, dude, you don't even live there. I'll write you a prescription for a little fruit that you can put in your bag. I think that'll fix your problem. How would that fix anything? That's part of the problem. And that's 1 hour. This therapy session has been brought to you by the ChatGPT University of Psychology. That'll be $300. Well, that is just a skit. I actually don't think the therapist said that in the article, because the article itself only really said what she sees people doing, not what she actually thinks is, like, beneficial. The article writer put those words in her mouth. She basically took an anecdote from the self-proclaimed queen of the Labubus about how her Discord community of collectors were, like, staving off loneliness and grief by, you know, kind of buying into this hobby, using it as a distraction. And then she also had, like, a little interview with this therapist about, like, how she sees collectors' behavior being a way to, like, stave off loneliness in some people. But then she kind of spun it into an article being, like, pro-Labubu and pro-collecting in this regard. And even at the end of the article, it ends with this line. At the end of the day, she knows how Labubus have helped her and hundreds within her community, and that's all she needs. There's so much negativity out there, she says. Who gives a fuck if this brings you joy? Okay, so as a journalist, if someone tells you that they're collecting Labubus to stave off grief, or they're stressed at the state of the world, it is genuinely journalistic malpractice to be like, oh, look, the surprising mental health benefit of Labubus. That was literally the original title before they changed it after Backlash. And then the end is just a call for critics to fuck off. Like, come on, man. Like, dude, if someone tells you that, logically your next question should be, is this unique to Labubus or consumerist behavior? And the next question after that is, why are people resorting to consumerism to fix the void they feel? And those questions might be out of the scope of the article, or this person's expertise, in which case, this damn article shouldn't be written. Like, dude. And to illustrate my point more, it's like, I went through an extreme bout of grief about like a month or two ago, where all I did for about 3 weeks straight is I ran, played Roblox, and worked out. That was it. And it actually helped, surprisingly enough. But think of it this way, is there any innate property of Roblox that gives it a surprising mental health benefit? Or is it just that I found something to sink my time into so I didn't wallow in despair? It's obviously the fucking former. Latter. But no, according to our totally non-existent Pop Mart check, Labubus have a surprising mental health benefit. Get the fuck out of here. But I mean, what should I expect from someone who also writes about what each zodiac sign should shop this Amazon Prime Day? Unbelievable. Anyways, though, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. It's just that annoyed me so badly. Like, journalists have just been going off these past few years. Anyways, though, posts like that are why I really believe Labubu posts are like genuine propaganda trying to get you to buy in. Even if it isn't paid propaganda, and even if it isn't really like a conscious effort. And obviously not to lean into the realm of conspiracy too much, but I genuinely wonder if Pop Mart pays for this sort of thing. Because all of these posts have just an absolutely absurd number of views compared to their follower count. Like, this person hopped on TikTok, posted 3 videos. Their second one got 3.8 million views, and it was them eating a Labubu Dubai chocolate matcha crumble cookie. Again, second video ever, 3.8 million views. Like, there has to be something going on here, right? I'm not tweaking. I'm sure part of the reason it got recommended was the absolute spectacle of someone engaging in such unabashed TikTok overconsumption culture. But all I'm saying is that I keep seeing these damn Labubu posts with just an absurd number of views relative to their follower counts. Come on, YouTube algorithm. Come on. But anyways, I'm talking a lot about Labubu posts, but like, what kind of posts are there? What do you get if you interact with this sort of culture? Well, there are more innocuous ones, like people showing off their collections, showing off their little Labubu outfits or whatever, or just unboxing videos. I'm not a fan of unboxing videos. They're basically just gambling propaganda. Like, I really dislike that sort of like gambling culture, but that's just me. But other than those more innocuous types of Labubu posts, there are a few more types that I take massive issue with. So the first one is the ones of people just doing absolutely bizarre stunts of wealth, like this person who cover their cars in Labubus. Like, dude, you're gonna get put in a history book as an example of the destructive Western decadence that led to climate disaster. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Although this annoyed me a lot, there's actually one type of post that annoys me even more, and it's becoming increasingly common. So what I hate the absolute most out of Labubu culture is when people complain about quality control issues. Like, I know you want to get what you paid for, but if you're gonna take one thing from this video, it's this. Think of things from a global perspective. Don't just think of it inside your bubble. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes right now of a Chinese factory worker putting these dolls together, or working in a plastic factory that, like, you know, sends their plastic to these definitely not sweatshops. Because Labubus claim to be hand assembled by artisans, but like, if they're hand assembled and there's quality control issues, I feel like we know what artisans really means. So anyways, I'm gonna use Shein factory worker conditions as like an analogy. You work 75 hours a week with 1 day off a month. And you do this for years, if not the entirety of your life. And you finally get off your 12 to 16 hour shift just to go lay in your bed and watch a little bit of TikTok before you go to bed, do it all over again for the rest of your fucking life. And then you get on TikTok and you see these rich ass Americans complaining that the Labubu doll ears were like slightly off, or some of the stitching was a little loose, or like the face was a little twisted. It's like, seriously, I want you to imagine how you would feel looking at Labubu number 400 you made over your lunch break that you had to work through because you don't have the money to pay for a lawyer to fight work abuses, and then you see someone on TikTok complaining about it.
Into energy, I was really excited to get it. I've spent thousands of dollars with with you. And when I opened the box, I was less than happy because all of the figures are deformed in some type of way. Like this one really long ear, short ear, like completely different shape. This one has a deformed foot, and like these are supposed to be designer toys. It's really, really hard to get that.
Translation: I'm someone privileged enough to drop thousands of dollars on Pop Mart toys, and yet I'm still mad at their workers. Obviously, none of these people will outright say that, but that's still the subtext of what they're saying, whether they're aware of it or not. Again, my point is, think of things from the bigger picture. And what's even worse is that workers in these factories often will get fined if there's quality control issues. So if you're online posting about quality control issues of Labubus, you are quite literally fucking snitching on sweatshop workers. I'm not really taking personal shots at the people who post this sort of thing. I just really wish people looked at the bigger picture and outside of their fucking bubble. It's like, dude, I can't believe no one else has called them on this. But that's kind of what I mean when I say consumer culture is just absolutely poisoned. Like, it's so dystopian, and I feel like so many people balls deep within it. Just don't see how bizarre it is. I feel like waist deep is probably the correct word to use there, but balls deep is funnier. But outside of consumerist culture itself, I think a lot of people do see how like truly insane this sort of thing is. One of the most popular Labubu videos right now under like the Labubu theme song audio is people just destroying them in more and more creative ways, which commenters have titled Labuse. Although I will say, not everyone who's opposed to Labubu consumption is like in the right. Apparently a lot of people think they're demonic and modeled after the demon Pazuzu, which is obviously true because they sound similar, right? And then they always use this AI image to prove it. It's like any other image of Pazuzu does not look like a Labubu. But like for real, it's just ridiculous how little evidence it takes to get like religious fundamentalists to completely start up the satanic panic again over some little dolls. Like there was literally a protest calling these dudes demonic like a few weeks ago. And I really hate this sort of satanic panic thing because everyone who believes it is just pretentious as fuck. It's unbelievable. Like look at this one. They got y'all good. Like dude, it's genuinely giving me secondhand embarrassment because you know these people are never gonna like see how corny they're being. Like, oh my gosh, dude, they got you good. It's a fucking doll made of plastic, okay? Relax. And a ton of the comments on the Labubu posts are like, I rebuke this or something like that. It's like, dude, it's a doll! But I really do find it so funny because like, we both agree that Labubus are kind of cringe, but like, we got completely different reasons. Like, man, I really dislike Labubus because it's basically a bunch of exploited labor to create stuff that's going to be in a landfill pretty soon. And I feel like overconsumption is the way that people are coping with just like the dread of the world, and I find that pretty concerning. You know, we should maybe like fix the world. Oh yeah, dude, I hate those little demonic freaks. They're modeled after Pazuzu, if you didn't know. That's not what I said. But speaking of what I said though, I feel like now would be a good time to go over some of like the stuff I wasn't really clear on, and just kind of go over like my general beliefs about Labubus and why they kind of bug me. So now that you have a sense for what they are and how Labubu culture works, and what bothers me about them, what's the bottom line? Well, it really comes down to this. In the midst of impending climate disaster, we are pumping a stupid amount of resources into creating something that's gonna go to complete waste once the trend's over. Which is gonna be very soon, as we've seen from the last few, like, consumer bubbles. And that's not even factoring in the actual labor that goes into it. That labor being sweatshop labor from Global South toy factories. Which makes it even more dystopian. It's like, look, I don't support buying from Shein, but at the very least, Shein makes clothes. And in a more equitable world, clothes will still exist. Can we say the same about Labubus? I don't know. And again, don't get me wrong, at some point in the value chain for basically every item you own, there was exploited labor somewhere in there. That's just a fact of the world. There really is no ethical consumption at this time. And again, if you're engaged in stuff like this a little bit, you're not destroying the world or propping up these industries single-handedly. But there is a line that you cross where I find it really ethically dubious. Like when it gets to the point that you have like a giant shelf full of plastic toys and you're snitching on the workers who made it onto social media, I find that repulsive. Like that's where it gets really iffy for me, and I stop giving out goodwill. But beyond this though, I also find it just kind of cringe and a little weird when I see people collecting things that are basically just like the newest fad or whatever promoted by celebrities and influencers. Especially when it seems really like astroturfed. And doubly so when it requires gambling. Like dude, Lisa has the money to spend on blind boxes. You have a car payment due! Like, I think the gambling aspect is one of the things that bothers me most, too. Because it's also one of those things driving overconsumption, and so many people spend more on it than they get out of it. I just really hate how normalized it is in so many communities to be like, oh my gosh, I've spent so much money on these, like, random chance things trying to get this one item, when it's like, you could have just bought it outright and actually saved more money, you know? And I just find it really, like, insidious how many companies started using these strategies. I just think it's a problem that needs to be solved. But you know what else is a problem? The fact that this video is over. Later.